Cancer, welcome to your mid-September 2021 General Tarot Update. It's Raina here. So how are you, Cancer? How are you doing? Okay. Huh. You see all this, you see what I've got here? I can't believe it. 4 out of the 6 cards are fire, Cancer. The positive side of fire is that it can be very independent and so can stress your autonomy, also your confidence, your sense of self, as opposed to worrying about what somebody else thinks of you or what they paying too much attention to other people's needs instead of your own. It can be more about, preserving your independence, and creativity is associated with fire. The challenging part of fire can be a lot of conflict or heated things going on. There can be a battle of the wills, the egos, like a clash of people of maybe like if you and your partner are going at it and you're having I'm thinking of like power struggles kind of, and that sort of thing. So how does that play out for you? Well, let's see. The heart of the matter is the 7 of Wands. And you can see, even if you don't know what this card might mean, you can see that the person is kind of holding one of those wands that he has in a defensive posture, like he's using it to protect himself. And that is one of the key phrases or, concepts of this card, is this idea of protecting yourself from somebody else's, accusations or condemnation, that kind of thing. And I have another tarot deck, and they show, for the 7 of Wands, this little flame. And it's very interesting that they chose that to depict the 7 of Wands. And I always call that the inner flame, because the inner flame or the eternal flame. And how I see it is that all of us have within ourselves, from the time we are born into this world, an inner flame, and it represents our path. But our path is kind of dry. It represents our passion in life that is individual to us, not what somebody else wants for us. And sometimes that flame is threatened with extinction because we are just discouraged so much from becoming who we are. And there's almost like this, to me, fun that is associated with it, because when I think of fire energy with the fire signs, there's like an inner child. Yeah, I think that you would call it like that, the inner child that is ever young and enthusiastic, doesn't get jaded, doesn't feel like they have to take themselves or life too seriously, but by the same token, they are taking it seriously because they are passionate about life. Isn't it funny that the people that are the most, business-like, or whatever you want to call it, about life, sometimes the most ambitious people, they seem the most miserable and the most out of touch with their inner child. Maybe their inner child had to like, died when they were very young. Sometimes this can be due to some, like, a death of a parent, or where they have to grow up really quickly. And so they're, I feel sometimes that is one of the greatest traumas, is having something, or abandonment of, like, maybe usually it will be the father who leaves the family, and then it's like the child doesn't have their innocence anymore, or maybe some kind of abuse that occurs. So you have to fight for that, the right. When I say fight, obviously I'm referring to defending your right to have your dreams. I think that's a big one. So in the past position, we have the Nine of Cups. And this is wish fulfillment. So you know what I immediately thought, Cancer? Do you have anybody in your life, or maybe it's a group of people who are, kind of haters? The two biggest examples would be your social circle and your family. Cancers tend to be very family-oriented people, so you may tolerate nonsense a lot longer than you should if you are around people who are not supportive of you. Being supportive doesn't mean that they have to agree with everything that you do or say, but you know what I'm talking about. You know those people that they're always, if you mention, I got a raise at work, and they're like trying to poke holes in your happiness, or you say, I met this wonderful person, and they refuse to accept that person into the family. They just don't, or if it's friends, they're cold to that person. So the Seven of Wands can mean that for some reason your good fortune is, being met in a way, is not being met with a lot of happiness by certain people around you. And if that's the case, you have to really question, who is really on your side and who isn't, so that you can get a good grip on what they really are all about. Are they really in your corner? The higher message is the Knight of Wands, and the universe may be asking you to become much more carefree and like a warrior of sorts, where you are forging your own trail, and you're not needing to defend yourself anymore, because you don't need somebody's approval, and you don't need them to understand where you're coming from either. It's like, okay, you don't get me, that's cool. It's all good. And unfortunately, cancers tend to get defensive in general, because you're a water sign. You're very sensitive, and you're kind of like, you do tend to be touchy. That does tend to be what cancers are like. Part of that is because you're ruled by the moon, and the moon is unstable. I was going to say the moon is unstable, so you're unstable. But mood-wise, you do sometimes get aggressive, even because, you're a cardinal sign, so sometimes you get very kind of almost very feisty in your face, It's kind of funny sometimes when cancers really get their I was going to say get their Irish up. I don't know if that's politically correct these days. I'm half Irish, so and it's really funny too because I'm half Irish and half Puerto Rican. And one thing I've noticed is that I know I know somebody who has a background in who's Irish, American, not born in Ireland, but talks. I think the Irish Americans, maybe that's not true of Irish people from Ireland, because they seem like they're pretty soft spoken. But the Irish Americans, maybe from Chicago, they talk so loud, and the same thing with Puerto Ricans. It's like they have something in common. So there you go. So maybe I talk loud too, because I have that in combination. Okay, so there I just generalized about cultures, right? But anyway, it's really more about you being very sensitive, but sometimes hypersensitive to what you perceive as somebody's either being insensitive to you, being dismissive, or something like that. And if they catch you on the wrong day, that can be more combative than sometimes. Sometimes you might be very timid, and just be very shy about, your feelings and kind of internalize them. So this is about having more of a carefree attitude instead of taking things too seriously, and that will be your form of self-empowerment. What crosses you is the King of Wands. Now, this can be the person that you are dealing with who, for instance, we are having a Mercury retrograde and we're currently in the shadow period. So even in the shadow period, some of the same things can come up. And this Mercury retrograde is in Libra, so that even enhances this idea of a love interest from your past coming in, or an ex, that kind of thing. I'm seeing like hearing from them. What if you have been dealing with a narcissist? Maybe this King of Wands in reverse is like a bully, a controlling person. These are the types of people, who come back into the picture when you've met somebody else. The Nine of Cups can easily be that you have met somebody that you feel emotionally fulfilled with, and that's when you start to have to go into defense mode, because it seems like, and this unfortunately will be true if you come from a lack of support in general. So some people, they have enemies in all camps. I know that sounds bad, but it's like they can't, their friends aren't supportive, their family isn't supportive. And so if you have that kind of unfortunate situation where you really don't have anybody who is rooting for you, it seems like people are rooting against you, you can really figure out that could mean that they are jealous of you, that you stand out from the pack as somebody who has a lot going for you, and they might feel envious of that. And instead of like using you as an example and kind of aspiring to be like you, they could be kind of like, oh, I'm gonna cut her down to size, with the way that I treat her. So it's watch out for some kind of ex coming back into the picture. Or even like the King of Wands in the challenged position, if your father was very controlling. Maybe you're feeling this sense of having to defend yourself because you dealt with a father who was a bully, and you're still in that victim mode, and you have to kind of realize, I don't have to defend myself. If people don't want to understand me, that's on them. It's not my responsibility to make people understand where I'm coming from. What's coming in is the Queen of Swords. You may have to make a decision about something, and you can't allow sentimentality to color your decision. Queen is water element, and that's feminine. The sword is masculine and rational type of thought. So it's very much opposed in that sense with the Queen of Swords. There is that, wild difference. What this can mean for you is that you are acknowledging your feelings and still doing something, and it might be a very difficult decision to make, but you know that it's the right thing to do, and so you're going to do it. And so, for instance, let's say that your ex calls you and you decide, I'm not going to take the bait. And you might be a little bit afraid that they will take offense, but you don't care because you're in love with somebody else. Or you've had some sort of success that makes you feel like I'm content and I don't need this aggravation in my life right now. The outcome is the 9 of Wands. This is about having boundaries. Maybe this is new for you, Cancer. Maybe you, in the past, made the mistake of letting people in that violated those boundaries, that wanted you to, do what they wanted you to do, and they weren't interested in your feelings. They were interested more in controlling you than anything else. And now you're in the driver's seat. Because Wands, like I said, or I hope I said, is all about your autonomy. So that means you get to choose what you do. Nobody gets to determine your next course of action. That's what I have for you, Cancer. I hope that you resonated with this. If you would like a private reading, I have an astrology chart analysis special going on called the Deep Dive Reading, 2-hour-long full-length readings, the first being a chart analysis and the second being transits for the upcoming 12 months. You can find out about that reading. It's for a special price. You can find out about that reading and my other offerings at the link below. Take care. Bye.